The content, views, and opinions expressed in the following program are those of the producer and do not necessarily reflect the view and opinions of the City of Bremerton, BCAT, their officials, or their employees.
Hi, my name is Phil Colcord, President of Fraternal Police Evergreen Lodge here in Kitsap County, and this is our outreach program. Today we have Corporal, right?
Corporal, yes.
Corporal Allan McComas. Did I say that right? He is a canine officer with the Bremerton Police Department, and we're going to also later hopefully have some clips we'll show you of his dog Knox, but we'll talk about the dog here in the meeting. Thank you for being here, Alan. Tell us a little about yourself.
Well, thanks, Phil. Entirely my pleasure. So I'm, like you mentioned, I'm a corporal with the Bremerton Police Department. I've been there since 2016. Before that, I was an officer and a canine handler in South Bend, Pacific County.
So you've been involved with canine for many years, huh?
I got my first dog in 2013. That was Canine Panzer. He was a narcotics detection dog. After that, I worked Canine Legend, and he was also a narcotics detection dog.
Okay. And that was what county?
South Bend in Pacific County.
Okay.
Right on the coast.
Okay, yeah. Well, if I remember correctly, they had a bit of a problem with drugs down there.
Indeed, we did, yes.
Yeah. So, and how you went from drug dog to what do you call them? They're not really assault dogs, but they're tracker dogs, patrol dogs.
Yes.
Yeah. So when did you?
So I got my first patrol dog in 2017 after I came to Bremerton, and after that was Canine Loki, and after working with Canine Loki for a number of years, now I'm partnered with Canine Knox.
And Loki retired, I take it.
He did retire, yes.
Yeah. Oh, good. So, what kind of training does Knox is your new dog go through?
So the state mandates a minimum of 400 hours of training to become certified as a patrol dog team. But I can tell you from experience, having done this a few times now, that it takes a lot more training than that. So Knox and I probably put in somewhere close to 1,000 hours before we were ready to try to certify to be a patrol dog team in Washington State.
And what do you do to certify?
So there is, at the very end of the training, there's a test that you take that's proctored by some master trainers. And there's a number of things that you have to show proficiency in, including all the things that we do on a regular basis, like tracking and building searches. You have to also show a great aptitude in regular things that most people are familiar with, like obedience.
So, and you do this for the state? Is the state?
Right, so there's two governing bodies that kind of oversee patrol dog or any canine team's training. One is administered under the Washington Administrative Code, and that's the certification process. There's also the Washington State Police Canine Association, and they have a slightly higher standard, but they're really testing the same things, and you become accredited under their standard.
Okay. Kind of like officers do with the criminal justice system getting certified.
Very much so.
Okay, good. So, what is canine tracking?
So the heart of what we do. So the most of our utilization with me and Canine Knox is tracking people. And that's when somebody flees from the police, usually after having committed a violent felony, and we get called in to locate them.
Okay. And so I know back before we had any dogs, my wife trained one for search and rescue, and she took it as a young puppy. And, you know, dogs, like people, tend to cheat. And so she taught it air scent and ground scent. And the dog ended up being really good. In fact, we used it for one lost child when we didn't have any dogs right in the beginning. And then we got dogs and didn't use her again. But anyway, so what are the dogs trained for? Are they trained for scent like a bloodhound, or are they air scent trained, or both?
So ideally what we train our dogs to do is to track people footstep for footstep. So wherever the suspect went, we don't want them air scenting. We want them actually nose to the ground and tracking the people exactly where they went.
Okay. So you'll take like last place you know they stood and start them there?
In a practical sense, yes. The last place the suspect was known to be, we take the dog there and introduce them to whatever human scent is there, and that's the scent they'll then be trained to follow.
Okay. And what happens to your dog after shift? Does he go home with you, or?
Yes, so these dogs spend their entire lives with their handlers. So we begin the day together, we go to work together, and we come home together.
And what happens to the dog when he retires?
So again, speaking practically, the dogs don't belong to the handlers. They belong to the city,
Right.
Or the county for whom they work. And they're considered a piece of equipment. And so at the end of their service life, they have to be surplused. And you can imagine that at the end of their retirement, these dogs just gain value. So we've put in countless number of training hours into these dogs. They're highly trained, in addition to the original purchase price of the dog, which sometimes is in the upper thousands.
Right.
But the city of Bremerton has a one-time offer for their handlers that instead of looking at the dog's value when they're retiring, the handler gets the opportunity to buy the dog for the esteemed price of $1. So invariably, the handlers purchase their dog for the $1, and then they get to live out their retirement with their handler that they've worked with their entire career.
Well, that's good, and that's good for the dog too, I would think.
It's great for the dog, and it's really good for the handler too, because these dogs, they integrate into our families. I mean, they're family members from the onset.
Yeah, we've had many dogs live out their life with us, and it's like losing a friend when they pass.
It certainly is.
Or a child, kind of.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, understood. What do you use for a reward system?
So we pick dogs that have a really high prey drive. So if you imagine your home pets, they like to be rewarded with food a lot of times, or praise. Our dogs, they like to play tug of war. So whether it's a ball on a string or a little tug toy, their favorite thing in the world is to play fetch or play tug of war with a ball on a string, and that's what they really work for in the end.
Yeah, well, I know what you mean though. Some dogs are different. We have an Australian Shepherd, and she's a capitalist. She'll do anything. She'll pick stuff up for you. But once she does one trick for you, you have to give her a treat. If
They
she
want
don't
to be
get
paid.
Yeah, she won't do a second one until she gets paid for the first one. And then our German Shepherd, he likes praise. That's what he thrives for. Will Knox always have you as a handler?
So like I mentioned about the certification and accreditation process, so it's a long road to get to where we're certified as a team under Washington State. So once he and I become certified and accredited, we've also built up a bond together. So technically, somebody else could start working with him, but they'd have to go through the same training we did and the same accreditation process. And it's unlikely that somebody else could jump in and he would want to work for them the way he and I do. So I guess the bottom line is that more likely than not, he and I will be together his entire career and my career as well.
Right. Well, that's a good thing though, because I'm sure just with human nature that in the beginning when you get a new dog and when you first got him, there's trust issues between both of you that you have to develop that bond and get over.
There certainly is, and there's a lot of other things to overcome too. And just like with any relationship, having gone through all that and then to end up with that incredible bond that you form with your dog in the end, I can't imagine wanting to give that up.
Right, I can understand that. Yeah. What's the most challenging part of being a dog handler?
It's a great question. So I'll break that down into two different areas. On one hand, you have laws that are ever changing and department policies that sometimes change, and you really have to stay on top of that. In addition to which, just like any officer, we're making split-second decisions in sometimes really unpredictable conditions. And so you have to really have a keen mind and really be able to stay on top of all the changes that are coming along. The other thing that I recognized really early on when I got my first dog is that your time stops being your own. So we're working, like I said, with these really high drive dogs, and they require constant attention. So whether we're at work or we're at home, my life is planned around what Knox wants to do. So the first thing I do when I get up in the morning, my first thought is, what does Knox need? What does he need to be happy? Does he need to be fed? Does he need to go outside and chase a ball for a while? And then same thing at work. Like, when does he need to be let out of the car on a break? And as soon as our shift is over, I go home and I make sure that he's groomed and fed. And that's before anything that I do with me or my two kids who live with me. So that's really the biggest challenge, is managing your time. And it doesn't stop, even our days off. Mm-hmm. So there's no impromptu vacations or...
But he does tell you, I'm sure.
Oh, he does. He's very, very assertive when it comes to what he needs or wants. Mm-hmm. And he takes priority.
Yeah, well, that's good. Yeah, I can understand that. What's Knox's favorite thing to do off duty?
So as my two kids will tell you, he loves chasing a ball. So it becomes a whole family affair where we work in shifts to make sure that he gets enough fetch time throughout the day. Especially my 12-year-old will tell you that, and they have a great relationship as well. And he loves fetching the ball for my little boy. So that's his number one passion.
Yeah, I can understand that. It's funny how if you get close to an animal, you learn their little idiosyncrasies, and also it's almost like you communicate without talking. I mean, to a lot of things, because they interpret your actions and your moods.
Absolutely, we learn to read the dogs, and just like they learn to read us.
I wish that we could communicate with a dog. We'd probably be a lot smarter in dealing with people.
No doubt.
Yeah. Okay, you guys do the fair once a year. Do you put on other expeditions?
So we've done a few. We've recently did a little canine demonstration for a local car club. Occasionally we go to schools and do demonstrations. And really any public group that would like to see us can get in touch with the department, and we'd be happy to come out and visit.
That's good to know. And I think that the greatest part, or one of the greatest things about having a dog is, and especially the dogs you guys have, they're nice, big, muscular dogs. It makes a lot of the criminals that haven't completely lost their mind decide, I don't want to tangle with him, and they'll stop. I mean, I think you probably deter more times than not.
The dogs are a huge deterrent, and anytime we deploy our dog, the first thing we do is we make what we call a canine announcement. So we let the suspect know that they're being tracked or about to be apprehended by a police dog. And more times than not, when the suspect hears that, they'll give up and they'll come out from where they're hiding, or because they don't want to be apprehended by a dog. They can look at me and think, that officer probably ate one too many donuts this week and I can run away from him, or maybe I could take him in a fight. But when that dog starts barking, that's the universal language of I surrender. And you're correct. Nobody wants to tangle with Knox.
So yeah, I think that right there is worth its weight in gold as far as preventing this situation from escalating in a lot of cases.
Absolutely correct. Not only is it a deterrent to get people to surrender, but it's also it also works as a psychological deterrent for a lot of people. And really, we don't want to use violence when we're apprehending people. And anything we can do to de-escalate or to send the message that we would rather not fight, that works in our favor every time.
Yeah, yeah. I always tell the story that police, when they go to a scene, they're driving to get there as fast as they can, and it's man with a gun or whatever, and you a little voice in your head saying, "Slow down. You don't want to get there too soon." But I think it says a lot for the character of police officers that they run to danger when they rather go the other way. And it's nice that you can have a dog with you at times, because even though it's still dangerous, you got someone that can help you. We were all single cars, so you're there by yourself. And I know a lot of times I would have liked to have a dog with me.
I'll tell you, it's one of the best parts about being a canine handler is I get to go to work not only with my partner, but my best friend every day.
Oh, yeah.
And as much time as we spend together, it never gets old.
Mm-hmm. I shouldn't even ask this, but devil made me do it, I guess. You make sure the dog doesn't have a farting problem in the car.
So it happens on occasion, depending on what kind of treats he gets. But my car definitely smells like a dog all the time, and by inference, then so do I. But I'm glad to put up with those few moments when the odors are less than pleasant.
Yeah, I know from having dogs that sometimes it brings tears to your eyes.
So as much training as we put into these dogs, and they are highly trained, and we spend a lot of money on them, they're still dogs, and they still do all the regular dog things.
We to show you the strength of those dogs is we have cow bones, and we have to watch when he eats, and we only let him chew it for a while, because he got a thick bone, and he'll just disintegrate it. I mean, it'll turn to powder. Bone and all. Bone and all, yeah. And I don't know how good that is for him, but we don't want him to get a sharp one down there either. So.
Sure thing.
Anyway, training for the dog, it's ongoing?
It is ongoing. So in addition to the countless hours that we put in just to get initially certified, there's monthly training that we have to complete, and that usually happens on our own time. And then every 2 years, the state mandates that we recertify. So, and in order to recertify, you have to have all that training and documentation to show that you've done all that training in the meanwhile. So yes, we train typically once a week for several hours at a time, in addition to all the training that we do just throughout the course of the day when we're on duty. We'll stop when we have a little bit of a lull in the action and do some obedience or a quick track, a training track. And then we're back in the car and responding to 911 calls. But typically once a week on one of our days off, we'll get together with some of the other canine handlers in the area and do some more formal training.
And that's what's nice about having other ones in the area too that you can train with.
Absolutely it is. Having seen both sides, where I worked as the only canine officer in the area, and around here where we have, county has several dogs, and we also work with the other canine handlers and training groups up in the Port Angeles swim area. It's always great to have other people to train with and to bounce ideas from, whether you're having a problem or something that you're trying to work through or a new skill that you're trying to develop. Always easier to do it when you have other people with different interests and different experience levels to kind of help you and guide you along the way.
Yeah, I see where that would be advantageous. What are some other challenges that you have with the dogs?
Well, you're working with someone who doesn't speak a language like we do. So a lot of what we do has to do with learning to, we talked about reading each other before. The dogs are doing what they're instinctively know to do. A lot of that has to do with scent work, and it's up to the handler to try to figure out what the different changes in their behavior mean and what they do, and how to redirect the dog when they need to be redirected, and all that while dealing with a partner who, like I mentioned, doesn't speak a vocal language. So a lot of it's what you see in the dog and how to interpret what they're doing.
And dogs, I think, like humans, have off days, mood change days, different things that affect their demeanor, and you have to be aware of that and always conscious of it, right?
They certainly do. In addition to which, no two dogs, just like no people, two people are alike. So Knox is very different than Canine Loki, very different than Canine Legend or Canine Panzer or any of the other dogs that are currently in our group. And there's a lot of similarities, but enough differences to make it interesting and keep you on your toes.
Yeah, continual education, right?
Absolutely.
You have anything further that you'd like to tell us about your job? I want to thank you. You just to do that job, you got to be a very dedicated individual, and I think it's a pleasure to talk to you and have you out there working for us.
Well, I appreciate it, and likewise. And like I mentioned, this is the best job in the world, and I could talk about this forever. It's my very favorite subject. So thanks for having us, and anytime we'd be happy to come back.
Okay, well, that'd be great. So, and when you, don't hesitate to call if you want to get on, and we'll get you on as sooner than I did this last time.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
But I didn't forget.
Indeed.
So that concludes our show for today. I hope you enjoyed it, and we're going to have some clips of Knox in action here, or training, that we hope to include with this video. So in the meantime, stay safe out there, and go to our website, to our links page, and we have all kinds of outreach programs that are available to people in need. So, if you have a loved one that's in drugs or alcohol or has mental illness, check our site. You might be able to find someone that can help them. Until next time, stay safe and have a good day.